Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan-Berge and I'm your host. If you're not familiar with my work or would like to learn more about it, head on over to AIM International, the first tennis lab of its kind worldwide that is centered on delivering top 10 tennis rankings and is 100% backed by science. This season, we're embarking on something new, something fresh, what's been holding back changeover segments. We'll deliver how to beat the best players in the world or how the best players in the world are winning with top 10 and Grand Slam differences. If you want more, that's where my 14 books and the 180 plus previous episodes come into play. Look, it's a new frontier and I'm no longer holding back. So buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome back to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. Oh my goodness, we have had roughly an 8-week hiatus. That is the longest I've been away from the podcast since its inception. So that's almost, I think we're coming up in a few months to 3 years or thereabout. And like I've just shared, 180 episodes behind us, 14 books there, 13 specifically to get you towards that top 10 ranking, Grand Slam success, and more. Obviously, those who are familiar with my work, you know that it's the first of its kind worldwide, being responsible for the biggest longitudinal analysis on the WTA and ATP tours. We're over here today. So previous episodes, you would have seen dual screens. I'm trying something new. It may or may not work. So as always, feedback is always welcome. It'll give you the chance when those changeover segments do commence to be able to interact with me potentially on a live rolling basis. And this season, we'll try to freshen that up. What I'm going to try as well, and notice that I am using the word try, is typically when the Grand Slams are on, for example, or 1,000 events are on, I will share specific insights post or the day after. So there's a bit of a delay that will happen. Now, look, that delay may or may not still happen, but what I'm going to do is differently. I'm going to share with you how I apply the key learnings, the science, if you like, to each individual player. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to be very careful here, looking at the best players in the world. And if you're also another best player in the world, how you can beat them, how they are beating you. So we can look at Swiatek, for example, Rybakina, how Rybakina beats Swiatek. Sabalenka, Gauff, how Gauff's able to beat Sabalenka. Alcaraz, Sinner, how Alcaraz gets those occasional wins, how Sinner then gets those occasional wins. Why Zverev's yet to win a Grand Slam, how Djokovic has slightly regressed, but the difference between his game and other players. Look, but I'm not going to tell you everything. That's obviously where those books come into play. Very, very important. But I'm going to give you some snippets. So a changeover segment I'm rolling with, or calling them that for now, at this point in time. Because if you are one of those top players, you want to know this. And there's a very big distinction. A lot of players, and this is really important to note. And again, I've had a number of 8 weeks to think about this. Yes, I've been working very hard on my latest publication, latest manuscript. So those who are, again, familiar with my work, are familiar with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, you know I took a little bit of time off at the end of the 2025 season. So I was very naughty and wasn't able to share with you, for example, the finals. We'll quickly go over that later. But where I'm going or getting at with this is that, you know, with the work, with the data, those specific snippets that differentiate the best players in the world to those that win Grand Slams. And I've insinuated this on multiple occasions. So these changeover segments are going to give you a glimpse into that. Really important. But where I was going is that not all, but some of the best players in the world use data now to inform their decision-making, etc. I need to be really clear. AIM International and what I've built is a first of its kind. which means no active player on tour that has a data scientist even in their corner is privy to this information, because it's completely different. If you're fed data about where the ball's going to land, the shot percentages, etc., where you should play that next point, the whole construction of what's going on, that is all well and good. That's exceptional when you have that information. I'm sharing something completely different. It's still data, but it's a different form of data. It allows the player, so it allows you as the player, or if you are that player, to be in control of your own game from a technical perspective. It allows your game then not to be manipulated by your opponent. However, if your opponent knows your technical weaknesses in this respect, I can give you a different angle then on how to overcome that player's game. So it's not about percentages. It's not about where the ball's going here or here. It's how you can technically manipulate your game, but also expose your opponent's weakness. The best part here is that it's never been done before. That's why my books are exceptional in their own right, in respect to being world first. And again, 100% backed by science. My hope in sharing this is to, I guess, open your eyes, lots of players' eyes, is that there's different forms of data that are informing this new frontier. And AIM International is leading that way. And we have been now for 20 years, I've been building this. And the longitudinal analysis, that's inception, if you like, was when Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic and Serena were all at their peaks, still winning Grand Slams. And then the transition between that generation and now. So when Swiatek, Sabalenka came on board, Sinner, Alcaraz, and again, if you're familiar with my work, you've heard me talk about their ascension towards the top 10, the trajectories, and why my work can essentially pinpoint players who are going to progress towards a top 10. And we did a lot of that last season as well. One of my my previous books, Black Book, shared with you the 2024 season, for example, very thoroughly, and players who were going to ascend to the top 10 in the 2025 season. I think there was about a 90% plus rate of success. That's huge. That's never been done before, just to put that into perspective. It's significant. This season, though, there's no new book that's out to share that, because, again, I've been working very hard on that manuscript, and it's still a work in progress, very, very close. But I'm going to share the snippets more on a live rolling basis, see how we go, and the feedback there. Potentially you're able to work with me if you like, to give your game potentially that edge. And with Grand Slams obviously around the corner, the Australian Summer of Tennis kicking off officially today, I think it's a very exciting time. All right, so we're going to have a look at the WTA Tour first, and then the ATP Tour. Really quickly, though, we're going to catch pace with the very end of last season. Very quickly, not as detailed as I typically would do. All right, with the group standings, you heard me share last season, Rybakina was the underdog. And I need to share this, be really clear how bad her initial 6 months was, all right? And I'm saying that very loosely because it wasn't bad in all respects. We're talking at a very high level here. So when you're looking at the likes of Sabalenka, Swiatek, Gore, Pegula, Palini, Rybakina was lagging behind. But recall in around Wimbledon, we saw that bit of a change, very important there. And while we pinpointed Rybakina to do quite well in the end of the season, and obviously those who know the result, you know that, again, informed by data, it's all there. All right, Rybakina, Anisimova in the initial group standings. Rybakina, look, she came out firing, a very good result. Anisimova, this is a really big season for her. The 2025 season was exceptional. Palini did it the year before. Now, we saw in the 2025 season, Paolini, she stepped back a little bit, but was still top 10 status, holding her own. This season, though, will be very interesting to see if Anisimova is going to do the same, hold her own, hold her ranking inside the top 10. So that is noteworthy. Swiatek, Keys, look, that was 1 and 2. We knew Keys was really regressing at the end of last season. She just took her foot off the pedal, understandably, longer off season. There was no surprise there, and eventually, obviously, withdrew from the finals. Pegula over Gauff in 3. This was really a good match. Not that Gauff played exceptional, but Pegula has that game to essentially make you very frustrated on court. I'm going to be very interested this season if Pegula ups that level, or we're going to see a bit of a regression. But there's going to be a bit of a give. Sabalenka over Paolini, 3 and 1, really struggling to push through against fellow top 5s. But again, a lot of coaching changes we've been hearing about. We won't get into that today. But I'm, again, curious to see what happens with Paolini. I'm very, very curious with a lot of players in this respect. Anisimova over Keys went to 3. Now, I like that because it shows that Keys is still at that level. It's very impressive. Anisimova as well. Rybakina, Swiatek. Look, we're going to talk more about this, I think, in the weeks to come, months to come. Swiatek holds her own. She has that threshold. And we actually saw it on a few occasions throughout the 2025 season when Swiatek just went flat, absolutely flat. Look, Paolini actually did it Australian Open last season with Svitolina, for example, I remember. But Swiatek, she's bageled opponents a bit in the 2025 season. But to have another top 10 player bagel her, it's brutal. But something's not right for a player of that standard to actually, their whole level to drop. So we have more data around, say, why that happened, etc. And we will expose more of that this season. Sabalenka, Pegula, again. Pegula pushing Sabalenka to 3. I love it. It shows us something that I think a lot are not very familiar with. And that is, I think, Pegula is at it and she will stay at it. And it's a very different game to what other players have. And again, we'll dive into that more this season. Gauff, Paolini, despite, I think, the scoreline, still Paolini stayed with her. Gauff, good match on that behalf. All right. Anisimova with the win over Swiatek in 3. But again, Swiatek, we would have wanted her to increase that level of play in the 3rd, for example. I'm not going to go through all of the numbers. You can refer back to the results as well. But again, we would have liked a Swiatek to be up there, especially as number 2 in the world. Again, a similar pattern. It's showing me or telling me with the data something's not quite right. All right, Rybakina, Alexandrova. Alexandrova obviously stood in when Keys withdrew, for example. She's still up there. I'm curious to see if Alexandrova can cross that threshold this season. Again, I don't want to give too much away. This is more of, let's say, an introduction to the season because we did miss out on those last roughly 8 weeks. Sabalenka, Gauff, really, I think, distinguish the difference between the two players at the very top. Sabalenka, obviously, straight sets there. Pegula, Paolini, again, Pegula, very, very solid, earning that top 5 ranking. Semi-finals, Sabalenka, Anisimova, Pegula, Rybakina. I think surprising in a way for Pegula to be in the semis, but absolutely not if you're watching her level of play, how she was playing, and obviously those results. Same with Anisimova. So Sabalenka, Anisimova. Sabalenka still in 3, but I love that. Rybakina, Pegula in 3 as well. It was actually probably the tightest I think the finals have been across, say, the semi-finalists. There was no whitewashers, and we've seen a lot of whitewashers quite consistently throughout the season. So I like this at this level. All right, so then as far as I think we know and the finals were concerned, Rybakina, Sabalenka, and I think this surprised a lot of people. But look, the second set was a tiebreak, but 7-0 Rybakina. Does this suggest potentially another Grand Slam is around the corner this season? Maybe. All right, we may very well see that breakthrough. again. It's been a number of seasons, and it would be almost an anomaly to see it, but it actually would track. That said, there was an exhibition match. I do believe a few weeks ago, Swiatek, Rybakina. Swiatek, I believe, did come out on top, get a little bit of a revenge there. Not too sure what the scoreline is. Not going to read too much into those exhibition-type matches, but that'll be interesting. All right, so we do have United Cup. It's literally kicked off only a few hours ago. And we do have, I think Spain, Argentina are up, but it really kicks off tomorrow with more teams there. Brisbane International, a few days away, only 2 or 48 hours away now. They are yet to release the draw, so we're not going to dive into that afterwards. So more of it starts, well, look, Auckland starts the day after, still no draws. Adelaide, obviously, the week after that, and Hobart leading up to the Australian Open. And then Australian Open, it starts a little later this year, the 18th. I can't remember the latest it started. I think this is potentially the latest it actually has started, if ever. But that'll be, I think that'll be good. And also this season, typically we have it kicking off end of December. I really like how it's actually January now. It's kicking off. So when it's actually 2026. So again, that'll be good. So that's all there. Obviously, we're not going to go over ranking changes, etc., because there's none really essentially to discuss. However, that said, it's going to be interesting to see the movement on the respective tours. The rankings website has decided to freeze on me momentarily. All right, we're back. Look, Sabalenka, Swiatek, points are obviously on the line, keys to defend that title. Sabalenka, obviously finalist there. We could see a shift very early on in the season, but maybe not. Gauff as well, depending on her level. But look, Anisimova, Gauff, very, very close there. Rybakina, she slid into the top 5, obviously after the WTA finals. Pegula's solid at 6-2, very, very close. So all of these players are very close, especially to the top 6. Keys, Paolini, very close as well. Andreeva just behind there, and Alexandrova top 10. Look, Bencic is on the heels at 11. And then we have a bit of a gap there, but I will share more of, I'll say, the rankings, predictive analytics, what that's looking like, I think, in the weeks to come. Not so much today. All right, I'm going to pause there on the WTA Tour. Let's head on over and catch up on what's been happening on the ATP Tour. All right, over to the ATP Finals. Alcaraz, de Minaur, first match kicking off. Alcaraz straight sets over Alex, but Alex did get a tie break there. Not so surprising. All right, Fritz Mazzetti, great match there. I'm going to say as anticipated. Zverev and Shelton really tight that second set, 8-6 in the tie break. I'm curious to see good things, maybe not from Shelton this year. He really amped up his game 2025 season. Can he push that further to get to a semi-final, if not multiple semi-finals at the Grand Slam level this season? I think that's going to be very interesting. Zverev, can he hold his own? Will he get to another Grand Slam final? Will he cross that threshold? It's going to be interesting because he's one of the players I'm really looking forward to sharing those key weaknesses in his game to take advantage of, or what his game's missing to cross that next level to become a Grand Slam champion. Next, we've got Alcaraz and Fritz. I loved how Fritz pushed Alcaraz to 3. Arguably, I'm going to say in some of these matches, Alcaraz wasn't at his best. But again, I'm going to share insights into what Alcaraz's game is also missing and why he's had those odd, if you like, losses during the 2025 season, rebounded quite quickly. But that vulnerability, that's still quite evidently there. Sinner, Agor, Elisame, straight sets there. Wondering if Felix will have a bit of a breakthrough. If he can get to that semi-final, if not another one this season. All right, next we do have Felix and Shelton. I love that. 3 sets went to Felix, but these two really go neck and neck, really vying for that next contender, if you like. So that consistent semi-finalist, quarterfinalist spot. Mazzetti, de Minaur in 3, both neck and neck. Really rooting for, I think, de Minaur to just push it, especially in Australia, whether he can get to, say, a Grand Slam semi-final, let alone potentially a final. That's going to be interesting. Some changes, I believe, in his team maybe as well. All right, Alex got that win over Fritz, still in the group stages, straight sets. That was really promising to me. Sinner over Zverev, straight sets. Not surprising there. Sinner over Shelton, but look, Shelton pushed Sinner to a tiebreak. I like that. Alcaraz, Mazzetti, straightforward there, predominantly for Alcaraz. Curious also to see how Mazzetti rebounds this season. Sinner over Alex, straight sets there. Ogor-Lissame, though, did upset Zverev. Straight set, second set was a tiebreak. So again, you can see that level of all these plays. It's really up there. There's no, say, whitewashers. And we didn't really see those whitewashers on the WTA Tour either. So the finals, I think, collectively really did correspond with the levels across both tours this season. Alcaraz Ogor-Lissame in one of the semifinals. That was a straight there. The other semifinal was Sinner de Minaur and straight as well that we touched on. Finals, though, I love that it was this close. I don't think we would expect anything less, but 7-6, 7-5 to Sinner. And I think the rest is history, even though Alcaraz did snare the number one ranking. So we'll quickly go over to the rankings. Look, there is a little over 500 points separating the two. Sinner, though, he needs to defend his title. So I think the pressure's automatically on. Potentially we will see a shift. Maybe not. I think what's really interesting is Darren Cahill is staying on Sinner's team. He said all season last year was going to be his last, and somewhere between the last 8 weeks of not sharing, obviously, or Beyond Top 10 Tennis not being live, those changes happened. Really unusual, but great for the Sinner camp. Really interesting as well that obviously we know Alcaraz parted with Juan Carlos Ferrero. That's going to be very big news, I think, come a few weeks when the Australian Open starts. I think that increases Sinner's chances. But look, it's going to be interesting. I won't say too much until we obviously see more. Zverev's, look, he's still firm at the top. Djokovic is there, and arguably he didn't even play that much compared to the top 3 throughout the season. But Felix Ogor-Lissame, he joined the top 5 at the end of last season. A huge result for him. And Alex went up to 6. Huge again for Alex. Mazzetti's steady at 7. Shelton obviously at 8. And ironically, Fritz actually fell back a bit to 9 in the world. I think his lowest ranking in the past 12 months. I will anticipate that changing, especially hardcourt Australia, for him to be bumped back up. And Draper, obviously, he's at 10. But again, he's not playing in Australia, has withdrawn already. So it'll also be interesting to see what happens. I think what the biggest surprise is Bublik is at 11. He had a huge climb last season. Ranking high, it's almost ironic / phenomenal what he's been able to do. And he really is bringing on the top 10. Rudd's out there. It'll be interesting if he joins the top 10 again. Medvedev as well, closely behind. And then obviously we know the others are behind that. So I won't have a deep dive too much into that. Tournaments very similar to the WTA Tour. United Cup underway, but again, really kick off tomorrow where we'll see more teams in action. Brisbane, 48 hours will kick off. And then we have like a 250 in Hong Kong. I really would like to see more players here early because of the time difference, but you know, it's not as brutal, say. Adelaide then will kick off the week after, and Auckland, very similar to the WTA Tour, then the Australian Open. So jam-packed, but I think we'll see a lot of the players playing, you know, in this first week, second, and then they'll have that week or two off, or well, I'll say that week off before the Australian Open does kick off. So there's a lot there. We've gone over the finals results. I'm not going to go over, I'll say, the other finals results, look, the word's escaping me. Those who know what I'm talking about, thank you so much. Those who don't, just never mind. All right, so we've caught up on the end of the 2025 season. I've given you a little bit of an insight of what's in store this season, what potentially we're going to look at, have a bit of a deep dive at, but also to encourage you to head on over to AIM International, learn more. But I hope you're looking forward to, I think, what's in store in the coming weeks, coming months, this season as well, because I'm looking forward to it. We've had that break as well. So most importantly, that we are back, we are still here. And I really hope you've enjoyed this. A little bit of a different format, shorter today. And we're going to see have a number of episodes where they're going to be quite short and small snippets. So those changeover segments. And please send through your feedback. That's going to be, I think, really insightful and help steer Beyond Top 10 Tennis throughout, the coming season. All right, so thank you so much for listening. To grab your copy of any one of my 14 books, you can find them on AIM International or Amazon, so irrespective of you're based in the world. If any comments or questions, head to AIMate or Topic Thread or leave comments directly here on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis or catch up on our blogs or sign up to my newsletter, head to AIM International and remember to check out Pink Octopus Books to Spruik. And look, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above. Beyond Top 10 Tennis exists for you, so please consider sharing us near and far. And look, if you're serious about heading towards the top 10 or want to know what your game is missing to secure that maiden Grand Slam or more, don't be shy and come and say hi. All right. On that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.